was Dad? Where did Dad get his ideas from? Where did he get his inspiration? Where did he come up with these ideas? Was it from Greece? How, like?
I'm not sure how he fished these things out of the blue, but they all worked. Everything he did worked.
Yeah, he was a great businessman for his time. He was also extremely progressive because, as far as I was, from my point of view, I had to go to university. I was not allowed to get married or anything unless I finished university.
Being a female in Greece was not the way. Oh,
and his great words. You must have your own bank account. Always have your own money. Not many Greek dads of that era would say that to their daughters. No. So I was, that's really.
But the idea of, let's say, the idea of manufacturing yogurt here in Australia, how do you think he may have come up with this idea? Like,
from the beginning, right?
It was. I remember him making yogurt at home. He'd use an oven.
Yeah.
And heat it up in the oven, and then it was one of these things. Getting in the dairy business in those early days was incredibly hard.
When did you go to Tasmania?
1956.
He was looking for milk in Tasmania.
No, in 1956 we went to Bonegilla, it's written down there.
Yeah.
We arrived in Bonegilla in May 1956. We went to Marrawa, the most western point before you hit the ocean in Tasmania, called Marrawa. There was a cheese factory there which he got a job in. This is from Victoria, so we went on board a ship all the way to Victoria to Tasmania. He made cheese, feta cheese there actually. He started to make feta cheese. The place wound up after 6 months because in those days the farmers didn't use milk. What they did was they get milk and separate it. So you get cream and leftover more or less skim milk or solid. That would go down the drain, would go down to the river. And that's how they made money.
Can you just explain to us, like, when we say Attiki is actually a big network. You've got the Marrickville yogurt factory, you've got a factory in Combine, you've got a factory in Taree. Yep. Can you just explain the network, how it functioned?
Well, it really functioned between myself and Peter and Lea.
It's all to do with the family.
It was all very family.
That's how it was networked. And Jim, when he was alive, was...
Yeah, he was in Honcho there for a while.
Yeah.
But he became
and Dad, when he was still well.
Well, Dad used to, after a while, once we built the factory, Dad used to prance around.
Prance around in his suit, always in a suit and tie.
He'd do his gardening still in his suit. But anyway.
But what was being manufactured in Taree? What was Combine?
Okay, look. Taree started manufacturing feta and then on to mozzarella. Now, it became, it was great for the co-op because they were sort of failing a bit. And all of a sudden, George comes in and buys all the milk with a hand. Oh, terrific,
Not enough milk.
Not enough milk. So we went to Combine. That was an area that used to get ripped off for the milk. They'd sell it to Peters for ridiculous prices. Well, my father went up there and said, look, give me a contract for 20 years and I'll take all the milk you got. I was like, shit, who's this bloke, Anyway.
What did we make there? Because pecorino...
We started making feta, then got into block cheeses, I think it's Pepato, Pecorino Romano. Didn't make that. It was very too similar to Pecorino Romano and halloumi. Right. Now we used all the area's milk, and sometimes in summer when there was droughts, we used to import milk off the road. That kept going very, very, very well. We made our name really on cheeses. People seem to think of yogurt, but in the Easter show, year after year, we won, top prizes for cheese and all that sort of thing.
And the feta was just as important as yogurt for the Greeks.
Oh, for the Greeks, of course, 100%.
But then when Australians started eating Greek salad.
Salad, they wanted feta.
They wanted feta. They didn't want the salty feta that the Greeks wanted. They wanted the milder, softer feta. So there was a production at the point, I think, if I remember rightly, you were doing 2 styles.
We did. One was soft, more tasty feta, and the other was the sort of thing you buy now, like a Bacillus bulgaricus and Thermophilus. That's what Peter was using.
Yeah.
Which is a firmer feta, which is the sort of thing you get now.
So the consumer sort of guided that.
But what really happened is, originally it was for the Greeks, and after a while it diversified itself to general community.
How do you feel that, you walk into a supermarket now and there are shelves and shelves and shelves of Greek-style yogurt everywhere, all these different brands. How important was Attiki yogurt in mainstreaming yogurt from, the exclusive Greek, that wagyu type of food, to be,
The reason you got Greek style was trying to copy the country style yogurt. And the only way that the only way companies like Dairy Farmers got everybody with Greek style yogurt is to load the thing with powder, so it's about 10% protein, and probably 10% fat, and about anywhere between 6 to 8% solids, which is the stuff that makes it stuff. Well, they found that if you just kept throwing enough,
it makes it thicker.
It makes it thicker. And that's how Greek style yogurt came along, because nobody could make the country style. I go and have a look at all the brands, and Jesus Christ, I remember when I went to going to Coles at Redfern. For the first time, there was somebody asked for yogurt, and we took Continental in those days. Oh, sorry, it was Woolworths. And then, later that afternoon, we got a phone call from the head office saying, "Could you please deliver more yogurt to?" It just took off. After that, we used to do. You didn't have deliveries from Coles stores in those days. You went straight to the stores.
But if I was to say to you that, that someone Attiki were the pioneers in pushing this, like I've read articles that Yorgos and other Rushna, you know what I mean? Like, George taught Australians how to eat yogurt.
Yeah.
I mean, that is such a powerful statement.
Well, look, I remember quite distinctly an inspector called, what's that meat called? Anyway.
The meat steak?
No. It was Silversides. A guy called Silversides who came in, I remember in Sophia Street, he heard, we used to go have a van, go and get 10-gallon cans from Vaucluse. Diamond Bay had the Peel brothers. They used to have packaged milk, and this was in Vaucluse, right? We used to go there with a van, Peter did that actually, and pack it full of 10-gallon drums.
That's the original factory, Sophia Street, Surrey Hills.
Anyway, this guy came along and says, you've got to register yourself, George. They was pretty nice people actually. Register, and he actually did register the factory. And he said, "George, how can you sell this stuff, It'll poison people." That was, But if you have a look now at, I'm not sure if I still got it, DIA, Dairy Industry Authority of Australia, still has my father's notes on yogurt manufacture, feta manufacture, temperatures, everything, right? And we got to know just about all the inspectors. They were really interested, None of this cheddar business. What's this Romano, yeah. Copious notes. Peter used to spend time up in the Convoy teaching young inspectors cheese making. Right? They trusted him to teach because they knew that he wasn't bullshitting, he wasn't playing with milks or watering them. It was the real thing. And they used to go up there to be taught by Peter. what actually happened was many years later they realised Peter never had a cheesemaker certificate or anything. So I remember, I can't remember his name, this guy came along, brought a certificate for me and a certificate for Peter to say, these are registered cheesemakers. I've been doing this for 20 odd bloody years. They never woke up to it. So, yes,
but what about the package, that white, how nostalgic is that product now? Like does it bring back a different era? Does it bring back...
It does, because I go to say hello to him at the cemetery. This is a whole feta cheese buckets with flowers in them.
Yeah.
Not my father's grave, that's around the cemetery.
Yeah.
I didn't believe it. I said, look there, halloumi buckets, attiki buckets.
Yes.
Old cans. Remember the original feta, the stuff that Peter thought was great, was sealed in a can. So it actually went to a machine and sealed it. And those still rusty, but still out there, you know.
But you talked about also cleanliness, where that 8-hour shift, 6 hours of packing, but 2 hours was about dismantling.
Definitely. If you wanted to produce good quality yogurt without smells, because milk you leave 24 hours, it stinks to high heaven. Keeping it clean was the one way of not using preservatives. And my thing that I remember going to Canberra in this meeting and saying, look, you don't need bloody preservatives. Why do you want it? No, we want to include preservatives and we want to...
It also extended the life of the product, because our product can be extended, assuming that it was treated properly, went from fridge to fridge to fridge. It's like milk, you can only keep it for so long.
We gave it 30-day dating, but 40 or 50 days is not unusual to be kept in the fridge. Yeah. Nothing to overdo.
Now I want to talk about George and the Greek community, right? Yeah. Like at the time, no matter whatever newspaper you opened up or whatever, there was always George. George was everywhere. Like if you went to a horo, there's always something donated by George.
Oh, yeah.
So George was everywhere in the Greek community.
Very much
he
so.
helped a lot of people. Like he's the number 2 card holder of Sydney Olympic. Right? I think number 1 is his son Peter. Jim. So, but he was a very, kind man too.
Look, my mother used to call him Anixtocheris. Κλείστα αυτά τα χέρια, βρε παιδί μου. Τα παιδιά σου πληρώνουν. And I used to get all sorts of, who gave you this check, Butts would disappear upstairs and I'd look at the buttons. 5,000.
Actually, it's a great story about Dad when the bank manager called him in, because he said, I've given you this checkbook. And he goes, George, what are you doing? You're out of money. You just keep giving out these checks. He said, well, you gave me the checkbook. You just keep writing checks. Never worried if there was money in the account.
No, you can't do that.
Can't do that, George. There's got to be money in the account to write the checks. Yeah.
Actually, it goes back, but as a lot of Greeks in those days, I remember him borrowing £1,000 from a Jewish guy. Quite a hefty sum, of course, but then from the same guy borrowed 10,000 pounds, or I think it's still pounds then, for Newtown.
The factory in Newtown,
So he was never had much money in those days, so he made sure his family only had the best. He worked his arse off to do it. And thank God my mother was an angel.
Yes.
My wife thinks that Yaya was a saint.